Professor Thwaites is chair of Climate Works Australia and the Monash Sustainability Institute. He's a consultant with Madoc Solicitors, providing advice to the firm and to its clients on climate change, water, sustainability and corporate social responsibility. Professor Thwaites was Deputy Premier of the State of Victoria between 1999 and 2007 when he retired. In 2012, he was named one of the top 100 global sustainability leaders, and we're very, very pleased to welcome him here today.
Well, thanks, Adam. And I'd like to start also by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where we are today, the people of the Kulin Nation, and acknowledge their elders past and present. I'd have to say that was an interesting introduction we had with the fellow with the kookaburra and the koala bear, and it did remind me of my time as Minister for Environment here, when we had a problem with koala bears, an overpopulation problem where they were actually eating all the gum tree leaves and starving. And as Minister, I had to implement a program of contraception for koala bears across the state, which is actually easier said than done. But it is wonderful to have all of you here in Melbourne. I have to say that this is, I think, the biggest, certainly the most enthusiastic and the loudest, and possibly the best crowd that I've ever seen in this convention centre. So, congratulations. And I think what you're realising now is that by coming together across country boundaries, across different backgrounds, by coming together and collaborating, we can learn so much from each other, and we can start to meet some of those challenges, those difficult challenges that Paul talked about. And I have to say it's really appropriate that you're doing that here in Melbourne, because in Melbourne and in Australia, if there's one characteristic we understand, it is that we are part of a world community, and what makes Australia what it is our incredible mix of people from countries all around the world. You know, in Melbourne, 31% of people who live in Melbourne were actually born overseas. And more we're seeing people come from different countries, from all over the world, and from Asia, changing the way Australia looks, but making it a much better place. And I think that's very much what you're about in your deliberations this week and going forward. It's about coming together, collaborating to meet these big challenges. But collaboration by itself isn't enough, as you know. You have to have a vision. You have to know where you're trying to get to. And I know that many of you this week have been discussing that very point. Where do we want to get to? What is our vision? A vision without poverty, a vision where the world is more equitable, where human rights are respected, where there's improved ethical behaviour by governments and by corporations, and a world that is economically, environmentally and socially sustainable. Because as Paul said, we do have these big challenges. We have a vision where we want to get to, but there are a lot of barriers along the way. We know that we've got big issues around how we meet the demands of a growing population, how we meet the huge challenge of climate change. And frankly, we haven't really even started the sort of action that we're going to need if we're going to get onto a safe path so that our climate is not dangerous for ourselves and our children. And biodiversity. Now, you started today, you saw the koala and the kookaburra part of Australia's unique and amazing biodiversity. But unfortunately, many of our plants and animals are threatened by loss of habitat. Indeed, some of them have already become extinct, and that will mean we'll lose as humans what has made our world so rich in the past, that incredible array of biodiversity. And those big challenges aren't going to be met unless we have systems and processes to meet them. And that means decision-making processes that are probably a bit different than they are today and have been in the past. As Paul said, we've seen some real improvements as a result of the Millennium Development Goals, but now we've got to take a big step forward. And that's why I think it's an incredible opportunity that we have with the Sustainable Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals didn't cover the full picture, the full sphere of challenges that we face, especially in terms of maintaining a sustainable planet, a place that we can keep having a real well-being into the future. And so I think the Sustainable Development Goals are a huge opportunity. And the nations of the world now are coming together to try to reach agreement around those goals. Unfortunately, the history of countries negotiating in a multilateral way is not always one of success. And so the test will be on for countries with the Sustainable Development Goals. Can they put aside some of their differences and really reach agreement on a set of goals that are going to put all of us in a much better place for the future? One of the ways to help that has been established under the auspices of the Secretary-General of the UN, and that is the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which has been directed by Professor Jeffrey Sachs and has representatives from all around the world. I'm very pleased to be on the Leadership Council of that network. And the point of that network is to understand that these solutions to the Sustainable Development Goals are not just going to come from nations and countries, they're going to come from universities, from corporations, and from civil society, and indeed from yourselves. And the aim of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network is to try to build up a network of those groups, universities, corporations, civil society, to come up with practical solutions to these huge sustainable development challenges. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity that that network has to relate to people like yourselves who've come up with such great ideas this week and will go back to your countries and then propagate and communicate those great ideas. So I hope that I and the other members of this network can work with you so that together we can collaborate to develop what is a really effective and meaningful set of sustainable development goals, but perhaps even more important than that, some sustainable development solutions. Thanks and good luck.
Thank you to Professor Thwaites.